We have two forms of breaking news in the NHL this morning. First, we get word with the Ottawa Senators bringing back Daniel Alfredsson, and then the Avalanche have announced a huge extension for Devon Toews. We'll discuss both pieces of news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a couple of pieces of big news out this morning here. First, let's start with the Ottawa Senators. We've been getting news from Ottawa regarding their front office and other additions that new owner Michael Andlauer has been making pretty much every Friday. It started a few Fridays back with Andlauer himself taking over officially as a team. Then last Friday we got SJSTerritory introduced as team president. And now today we get the confirmation from SJSTerritory that Daniel Alfredsson is 100% back officially with the Ottawa Senators. Although as of today, Alfredsson does not have an official title, but he was on the ice this morning for practice with the Senators. Staios essentially said that his role is going to be flexible. He's going to have to feel things out and see, but essentially he's going to be there for coaching and player development, which we had mentioned before is likely going to be a player development role. But I had also mentioned that Daniel Alfredsson, since he left the Sens the last time, got into coaching with his boys. And when he did some interviews, he kind of said, they was asked before, where do you see yourself, if you ever get back with Ottawa or in the NHL, what you'd like to do? And he said he kind of contemplated coaching. Now, he didn't coach a very high level. He'd be comparable to Marty St. Louis, coaching AAA hockey at his, kids' ages. But St. Louis did it. He's doing well. I think Alfredsson might be able to do it as well. Hard to say if that's ever going to happen. Right now they have DJ Smith. I don't think necessarily that Alfredsson would be like the next head coach or anything, but I wouldn't completely rule out him having that role at some point in time. Hard to say. Either way, I would suspect here in the near future that he'll have a more defined title. But at least as of today, he's 100% officially back with the organization, which is huge. The all-time greatest Senator needs to be involved. He can have such an impact in such a variety of ways. Just being around the room and around the team and around the players, being a sounding board for coaches, advice for management if they want. There's such a wide range of experience there that he can offer that it's all good. It's all beneficial. And SJSTerritory, team president, even kind of alluded to that fact, saying essentially Michael Andlauer, we know that he had met with Alfredsson a number of times over the course of the summer and early fall as his once it was becoming clear he was going to be the owner, or at least when he was in the bidding process even before it was official. And they had talked about him coming back, but they, of course, never really get anything official, and they really couldn't because at that point Andlauer didn't own the team yet. And then since Staios was hired in the last little while, Andlauer kind of gave him the direction to say, hey, I want you two the guys to get together. We know we want Alfredsson to be part of the picture, and leave it up to you guys to kind of figure out what he's going to do and what his role is going to be. And that did not take very long. And this morning, SJSTerritory confirmed that he said, hey, this is Daniel Alfredsson. It doesn't really matter what he does. He's going to be able to offer a positive, effect on the organization, which is such a, breath of fresh air to hear, because under the old regime, you never would have heard things like that mentioned. They've so far put a big push and focus on the fan base and the alumni, which is really great to see. Michael Andlauer, of course, when he became part owner or minority owner of the Montreal Canadiens with Jeff Molson when they completed that purchase a number of years back, was also instrumental in helping there was a big issue between Guy Lafleur and the Montreal Canadiens, and he helped kind of bridge that gap and mend that relationship. And now he's doing the same thing in Ottawa after certainly a complicated relationship, to say the least, between the previous owner, the alumni, as well as the fan base. So great to see. Obviously, Alfredsson was on the ice for practice this morning. Like I said, he's going to have a positive impact no matter what his role is. But long term, I can see him doing so many different things that it's hard to say where he'll fit. And by the time he retires someday or leaves the organization as a retired person down the road, hopefully it's a long time, I can see him doing a variety of roles. I can see him being the head coach. I can see him being like a team president, vice president, like an executive. I just think he's such a well-rounded individual that he could do a variety of things. So it's all positive. It's all good news, and great to see another great move there for the Ottawa Senators. As far as their lineup for their home opener tomorrow, still some uncertainties. They will definitely be able to address a full lineup, which is nice. Regardless, it looks like Zach McEwen, who was on the ice this morning, appears to be healthy enough to play. Obviously, they're still kind of waiting on Josh Norris. Josh Norris, I don't believe, took regular line rushes, but I know DJ Smith, after he came off the ice and after he did his media, he just said at this point there was no update yet on Josh, and he had to speak to the trainer. So he didn't know what his availability was this weekend, but I know they were pretty optimistic leading into this, so we'll see. Either way, if Norris is not good yet, and McEwen, if he's not 100%, they can get an emergency recall, which will likely be Yuri Schmeichel, and they can dress 12 forwards, which is, certainly a luxury. You don't expect your team to be really having to deal with this early, but they're not the only ones. There's a bunch of them. There's, I think, 4 or 5 teams in the same boat, and they need to get Shane Pinto signed. So we're still anxiously waiting for more news out of Ottawa to get their roster sorted so they don't end up in a predicament like they have the last few years with a poor start, because that would be a monumental disaster for this team, especially everything it's doing in the positive way off the ice. So we'll see where that goes. Now, the other big news we got this morning is out of Colorado. They've come to terms on an extension with one of their top defensemen, Devon Toews. There was word a short time ago from Elliotte Friedman, who was getting ready to board a 4-hour flight. He said that unfortunately he wasn't going to have any access to internet, that they were getting close, and he expected the possibility that something could get done today, but now it is done. So Devon Toews and the Avalanche agree on a 7-year contract extension. The average annual value, $7.25 million. This is an absolute steal for the Avalanche. Devon Toews took a discount 100% to remain in Colorado. There is no doubt about that. If you take a look at his point totals, what he would have been able to fetch on the free agent market next year had he hit that market, I can pretty much assure you that there would have been teams lining up to offer him $9 million or more. There's an argument that even close to 10 would have been reasonable based on what he brings to the table. I mean, he's pretty consistently 50 to 60 points. He's been a perfect pair for Cale Makar. These two guys are now locked up. Makar still has, I believe, it's 5 or 6 years on his deal. So, they're going to have this incredibly crazy top pair at a good value for an extended period of time. Remember, they picked up Devon Toews from the New York Islanders and Lou Lamoriello for 2 second-round picks. At that point in time, you can't fault Lou too much. I mean, you can, but you can't. It's not completely fair, because on Long Island, he was not looking like he was going to be this defenseman. Now, he didn't look like a bad defenseman either. He looked like he was going to be a regular, steady NHL guy. But they obviously, like many teams, have faced cap issues and had to make a cap sacrifice. He ended up going. And he had a good contract that was reasonable for what they needed to do. And at that point, he was going to probably be a second pair defenseman, not what he is today with the Avalanche and Makar. Now, you could make an argument that sometimes the different team you're with, the different partner you're with, all those factored into your outcome, and it may not have worked out the same had he stayed in Long Island. They play a completely different system, would have had a completely different partner. It's hard to say. But they got this guy for a steal of a deal in a trade, and now they've locked him up for a steal of a deal on a major extension for 7 years. This is going to take Devon Toews until age 37 when it expires. He has I think it was a February birthday, so he'll turn 30 this year during the season, and then this will kick in next year, so he'll be age 37. So this is absolutely phenomenal. Now, of course, if you take a look at the Avalanche, I do wonder how this is going to affect them long term. This is, as much as it's a steal, it's still another fairly hefty contract on the books. So if you take a look at what they have on the books for next year, and I'll give you a quick snapshot here from Cap Friendly, it shows that they have 16 contracts on the books next year for $84.8 million already. Obviously, you want to carry a 23-man roster if you can. Sometimes teams are carrying 21 or 22. Still, you're looking at adding a minimum of 5, upwards of 7 players to that roster, and you're only going to have, look, if you think about it, the cap is projected to be around 87.7 next year. If the increase comes through as projected right now, that only gives them $3 million in available space, or less than about 2.9 for at least 5 players, maybe more. That's going to be tough. Now, of course, a couple other factors here you got to remember. We do not know right now Gabriel Landeskog. He is currently out and not going to play this regular season. He's on LTIR. They were optimistic he comes back for playoffs. Now, if he can make a comeback for the playoffs and stay healthy and then go into next year coming back, okay, then they're going to have a huge cap problem. Because obviously this $84.8 million captures Landeskog being available. They can't predict that he's still going to be on LTIR. So that's $7 million. Now, if he doesn't play, let's say his career ends up being over, the comeback's not successful, that's a whole different story. They'll have $7 million of LTIR usage for the next number of years. But yeah, that's going to create some complicated situations for them next year. If Landeskog plays, they're going to have to shed a decent contract. There's no doubt about it. I kind of have to wonder if that might have to be a guy like Sam Girard or Josh Manson on the back end. You know, maybe a Nichushkin up front. It's hard to say, but somebody in that kind of category, that $4 to $6 million range, would be kind of ideally what they would look to shed. Now, of course, the other big thing is they got this year and next year for Mikko Rantanen, and then he's going to be due. So this time next year or into next offseason, hopefully before the season starts, they're going to be working on Rantanen's extension, and it's going to be a big number as well. So that's also going to complicate things. That'll be one extra year out, and obviously, again, Landeskog's fate is going to be highly impacting their overall roster and what they can keep. Like I said, if Gabe doesn't play and they have that $7 million that they can put on LTIR every year for the next number of years, while the cap's going up, then they'll be able to keep more of their roster intact. If not, they're going to have to shed next offseason and the offseason after. It's just that simple, but that's the nature of being a successful team and having all these players having great individual seasons and earning all these raises. So we'll see what happens, but at the end of the day, we have 2 pieces of pretty big news this morning between Daniel Alfredsson and the Toews extension. Let me know your thoughts on both of these pieces of news, and we'll discuss down further in the comment section. Of course, if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and updates on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.